This is the first one. It's entitled their Back to School VMware webinar series. The first of that series will be looking at security and compliance across VMware ecosystems. So what we're going to be covering today is looking at ways we can strengthen and enhance our security posture, tips and tricks, and how we can go about achieving that. Before I do that, just a little bit about me. My name's Steve Bettison. I'm the lead technical sales engineer at Runecast. I have over 30 years experience in the IT industry, a variety of technical roles, working with VMware, virtualization technologies, virtual SAN solutions. I've done first line, second line, third line support, IT project management, lots of experience in different things. Probably in the last 5 years, more involved with technical pre-sales, working with customers and solving problems. So that's a little bit about me. Let's get on to what we're here to talk about. So I've not put an agenda in. I've got an abstract that I want to share with you. I'm not going to read that out word for word, but I'm going to just talk around it. So security of virtualized workloads for me is now becoming increasingly a top priority for organizations. We've seen with the increase in attacks and threats, whether that's security breaches or data breaches to systems, it's paramount now that organizations are doing everything they can to protect one of their most valuable assets, probably the most valuable asset, and that's its data, and to reduce those potential attack vectors. And just to emphasize the importance of taking security and compliance seriously, the next slide that I've got is some recent highlights from the IBM report for data breach costs. And this was reported back by IBM back in the end of July this year. And just to cover a couple of these points, in 2023, the average cost of a data breach globally reached an all-time high of $4.45 million. That's a 2.3% increase from 2022 and a 15.3% rise from 2020. In the healthcare, the average data breach was $10.93 million. Financial organizations, 5.9, pharmaceutical, 4.82. If we look at that across the top 5 countries and regions, the US came in with the highest average at 9.4 there, and Japan inside that top 5 with 4.52. You can see that at the bottom, the UK saw a significant drop in the average cost, fell out the top 5 at 4.21 million, and that was down 16.6 from 2022. And just as a side note there, reputational damage is still one of the biggest costs of a data breach. So you have that initial damage cost that you've got to fork out, but then you've got that reputational damage, customers, loyal customers leaving and joining a competitor. So this is just highlighting the importance of enhancing your security posture of your VMware ecosystems and doing everything possible that you can to make that secure. And in many cases, it's often a lack of one or more of the following that can contribute or increase the chances of systems being compromised. So this is not a definitive list, it's just one I put together, but misconfigurations of systems, poor access controls can lead to attackers getting in, and obviously having attack vectors left open there. Not following security hardening guidelines, lack of security and compliance checks, lack of vulnerability scanning and assessment. Often or not, organizations do manual checks and follow manual processes. Things can get missed. Especially if you're doing compliance checks. If that's a manual process, parts of the system can get missed quite easily. And also time. So much information out there, whether it's knowledge-based articles, vulnerabilities, vendor best practice guidelines. So much information to digest. It's challenging to keep on top of all of this. Also, I believe better alignment of IT operations and security teams in the quest to enhance security posture of systems has never really been higher. So what I'm going to cover today, what I'm looking to discuss and cover today, is to look at some key aspects to consider when addressing security and compliance within the VMware ecosystem. And I've identified 6 areas that I want to look at. There's probably more things that I could discuss, but these are 6 that I want to that I've chosen today to talk about. And the first one is looking at secure configuration and patch management, and looking at sort of talking around best practices for securing the hypervisor layer. And probably the first thing that I want to start on is enabling secure boot at that hypervisor layer. This is going to add a security layer to the host. It's going to prevent the execution of unauthorized or tampered code during that boot process. And it's also going to provide protection against rootkit and firmware attacks. Rootkit allows hackers to take control of the hypervisor, which we don't want. Also, this is going to give you enhanced security integrity. So verifying digital signatures of things like the bootloader or the kernel components. This is going to protect the integrity of the hypervisor. Also, it's going to provide mitigation of unauthorized firmware changes. So unauthorized modifications to things like the firmware and the UEFI settings. This is also a compliance requirement. If you're following NIST or PCI DSS, just to mention 2, this is a compliance requirement, enabling secure boot. It's also giving you protection against boot time malware. So again, it's improving that overall security posture. And it's also at the next layer, at the virtual machine layer, virtual machine security, giving you some virtual machine benefits as well. So it's enforcing secure boot, and it's greatly reduces the chances of your virtual machines being compromised where you've got data and applications running. The next point I want to discuss is implementing hypervisor hardening techniques. Now, as a standard, following VMware security hardening guidelines and recommendations, following their best practice adoption as best as you can, and keeping on top of those knowledge base articles that VMware release is all very, very important. But other things to consider are things like disabling unnecessary services and ports. This can vastly reduce the attack surface and ways for an attacker to exploit. If you've got services running or ports that are open that are not being used, close them off. Use encrypted connections, so HTTPS for management interfaces such as vSphere Web Client. You can configure host-based firewalls. This will give you greater control over incoming and outgoing traffic to and from the hypervisor. And again, this is adding an extra security layer. Also enabling audit logging, capturing all activity. This is going to help spot malicious activity. Limit the hypervisor access to only trusted admins. Avoid exposing interfaces directly to the internet. Use VPNs for remote administration where required. And of course, regularly, doing security assessments and vulnerability scanning of the hypervisors. This is going to very quickly identify any weaknesses or issues that may come up. You may have changed the environment. By regularly scanning the hypervisors, you can identify those weaknesses, issues, even misconfigurations and vulnerabilities that may need to be addressed. And I'm going to talk a bit later about Runecast and how that can automate that particular process. Another area to look at that is important is patch management. This is so important. Applying timely patches and updates. This helps address vulnerabilities and ensures fixes are in place. You remember back in February, hackers exploiting that 2-year-old VMware flaw to launch a large-scale ransomware campaign. The vulnerability was detected back in 2021, and there was a fix for it. Yet in February of this year, over 3,200 VMware servers worldwide were compromised. So organizations were held to ransom, virtual machines were encrypted, and data was compromised. And it could have been completely avoided if you're following regular patch management and updates. Making sure known vulnerabilities are dealt with in a timely fashion, and of course, doing those regular assessments. And the fourth point, follow VMware's security best practices for configuring components such as vCenter, ESXi hosts, and virtual machines. And another important point, avoid default configurations. Default configurations provide an easy access for a hacker. So avoid default configurations and implement strong passwords and access controls. By doing that, you're going to ensure system stability there. So the next area or topic that I want to look for strengthening and enhancing the security posture of your VMware environment is looking at protecting the virtual machines. Strategies to safeguard your virtual machines, and this is where the data resides and where the applications are running in a lot of cases. So the first point area would be implementing virtual machine encryption, encrypting the data and the virtual disks. So what this is going to offer is data confidentiality, data protected from unauthorized access by encrypting those virtual disks. Even if a hacker gains access to the underlying storage or even makes a copy of the virtual machine files, they cannot access the data without those encryption keys. Protection against data breaches. Again, even if there is a breach without the decryption keys, the risk of sensitive data being compromised is mitigated. Virtual machine encryption is also a compliance requirement for many of the sort of standards, regulatory standards as well, including GDPR and PCI DSS, the payment card industry standard. And that's for both data at rest and in transit. Also, virtual machine encryption allows secure data migration. So virtual machines can be safely moved, copied, or even backed up without compromising the confidentiality of the data. It's also giving you protection against unauthorized snapshot access. So the snapshot files themselves are also protected alongside the data. And it's giving you protection against physical theft. So if somebody steals a server with the virtual machine files or even the storage media, it means the data is still protected. The hacker will still need those encryption keys. The next point, enabling secure virtual machine snapshots. Benefits here are data protection, giving you better operational efficiencies and DR capabilities. So again, data integrity and security. So secure snapshots ensure that data remains intact and consistent, ensuring reliable rollback. Quick and efficient backups, fast recovery and rollback. Also, this offers your SecOps teams or security ops teams the ability to do testing and analysis, to do things like vulnerability assessment and penetration testing to see how secure those virtual machine snapshots actually are. Also can play a role in crucial business continuity plans and kind of reducing downtime and maintenance by having secure VM snapshots there. Another strategy or area for providing an extra layer of security is utilizing virtual machine firewalls. Key benefits here are this is offering a little bit of network segmentation, so you can create security zones, enforce firewall rules between virtual machines, and you can isolate groups of virtual machines based on their roles and functions. So what this does really is limit the impact of security breaches and prevents the spread of threats. It's also giving you protection against network-based attacks, your DOS, denial of service, or DDoS, distributed denial of service attacks. Also offers granular traffic control, so you can enforce policies that control IPs or ports or even protocols to block unauthorized traffic, so giving you another layer of security there. This can be done at virtual machine level or application level. And of course, application level security as well. You can filter traffic based on application layer protocols there. So that's just a few strategies and ideas that you can follow to provide that security at the virtual machine level. The next sort of layer or area that I want to cover is network security. So a few tips for enhancing network security with VMware environments. First one is virtual network segmentation. This enhances security performance and general management really of virtualized environments. Some of the advantages are you can isolation of traffic. So you can create VLANs for applications, departments or user groups. And again, by doing that, you can prevent unauthorized access or data leakage as well. It's going to give you improved security. So it's enhancing that overall security posture, and you're reducing that attack surface and lateral movement of threats. Also granular access controls. So you can define as well here firewall rules, security groups, and you can control traffic between different network segments. So again, this is giving you that extra layer of security and enhancing your overall security posture from a network perspective. Again, this is from a compliance with regulatory compliance requirements. Virtual network segmentation is required for quite a number of standards. PCI DSS is again one of those we've already mentioned, and HIPAA, the healthcare standard, and there are other standards as well that require virtual network segmentation. Network traffic monitoring, several benefits. This allows organizations to gain real visibility into network activities, be able to troubleshoot issues, and generally optimize performance and enhance that security. So detect and prevent network anomalies. You're going to be faster responding to a security incident once that's been detected. Again, it's a compliance and audit requirement, PCI DSS and GDPR, just to mention two there. And it's going to give you optimized network security. And the third one, leveraging an IDS, an intrusion detection system, again, providing significant benefits from a network perspective. So be able to identify real-time threat detection. Again, enhancing the overall security posture, malware and intrusion prevention. And of course, as well, it's a regulatory requirement for HIPAA and PCI DSS, just to mention two there. So that's a few tips, tricks, and suggestions for enhancing and improving your overall network security and enhancing your security posture within your VMware ecosystem there. The next area or topic I want to discuss is implementing strong access controls. So some recommendations for strengthening access controls and authentication methods. First one I want to talk about is two-factor authentication. So VMware products can integrate with external identity providers that support 2FA, Active Directory Federation Services, and Microsoft Active Directory, Azure AD, and there are other third-party providers, can enforce two-factor authentication as part of that overall authentication process. Benefits, obviously, if a hacker does happen to have an account and a password, unlikely to have the endpoint that's going to provide the 6-digit code or whatever it may be as the third part of that authentication process. So it's adding another layer of security there. Implementing role-based access controls. Again, this is really important. It's important really to only give the necessary privileges to your users. Why? Well, this reduces really the chances of any accidental misconfiguration. I mentioned at the beginning, misconfiguration of systems is often a way where hackers can get in, and also reduces the attack surface from unwanted access. So you've got your IT operations teams enforcing that, and security teams checking that these role-based access controls are in place. Also, enforcing strong password policies. This is a requirement across most of the compliance frameworks, whether that's regulatory or non-regulatory. And I'm not just talking about, a lot of my passwords now are 14, 15, 16 characters long, special characters, all good stuff, but it's having policies in there that regularly enforce you to change. So maybe coming down from 90 days to 30 days. I know it can be a pain, but again, you're enhancing your security. Also things like not being able to have the same password for, ever to be able to use the same password more than once. So it's policies like this, and they are, certainly prevalent in many of the compliance frameworks. Auditing and monitoring, strategies for proactive auditing and monitoring. Checks, a lot of organizations, and checks are traditionally a manual process, and they can take a lot of time and resource and can often be inaccurate. So I think organizations are now starting to adopt, or need to adopt, a solution or solutions that can automate both auditing and monitoring. And if they do this, it's going to vastly improve and enhance the security posture and save companies time and money. So automation, I'm going to talk a little bit about what Runecast does right at the end with our automated platform. So logging and reviewing system events. This helps assess and prioritizes weaknesses in VMware environments. Implementing systems to detect and prevent intrusions. So automated solutions. So being proactive in detecting weaknesses, being proactive in being able to check against a compliance standard, weaknesses and threats. And this is going to allow really IT operations and security teams to better manage and prioritize and remediate these issues much faster and with much more accuracy. And then utilizing security information event management, SIEM tools, as we call them. SIEM software or SIEM tools enables organizations to very often detect incidences that may otherwise go undetected. They're particularly good at filtering out massive amounts of security data and prioritizing, those security alerts that the tool generates. So there's a little bit about auditing and monitoring. And the final point really is looking at security training and awareness. So organizations need, be more proactive now in educating their IT staff and users about security risks, and certainly the systems they're using within those virtualized environments. And, just a few bullet points there. IT staff and users being kept up to date with security documentation and information, attending courses and conferences, certainly maintaining the level of skills and accreditation, continuous system training, being aware of the access controls to those systems and being mindful of policies that are in place, and of course following general best practice adoption. In summary, what we've covered, and what I've covered today, is looked at 6 areas that can help enforce the security posture of VMware environments. I think it's essential to stay up to date with the latest security advisories, and certainly follow VMware's security guidelines to ensure the ongoing kind of safety and compliance of a VMware ecosystem. Additionally, consult with security experts and engage in third-party security assessments to ensure that that your infrastructure is as secure and compliant as possible. And we've looked at hypervisor, we've looked at secure boot, we've looked at some hypervisor hardening techniques, we've talked about patch management. I looked at the virtual machine layer and the strategies there, VMware encryption, secure VMware snapshots, and utilizing firewalls. We talked about network security, access controls, auditing and monitoring, and looking at security training and awareness. So I think organizations need to be proactive and have more automated approach, and to find solutions to enhance their security and compliance posture for their VMware ecosystems. And these are kind of some of the things that both the IT security and IT operations teams are faced with on a daily basis. Checking those knowledge-based articles, following best practice adoption, doing patch management from a configuration management perspective, doing all the troubleshooting, being able to rapidly spot issues and detect and remediate those, identifying real-time problems, right through to doing all of that vulnerability management and assessment, being able to prioritize vulnerabilities, and then the compliance checks, VMware security hardening guidelines, staying on top of all of that information, staying on top of all of those compliance checks that you need to do, being ready for audits. This is very, very challenging. And as I said, many of these processes are manual. And if this is something that your organization may struggle with or you may need help with, Runecast can help. Runecast can assist in enhancing your overall VMware security posture. We have automated many of the manual checks that take time, that are resource intensive and costly. So Runecast combines VMware IT operations and security compliance checks, including vulnerability assessment in one single platform solution to provide and help customers achieve secure and compliant workloads anywhere. So it's kind of like a single source of truth for IT operations and security teams. It proactively detects, misconfiguration within VMware environments. It identifies vulnerabilities and potential attack vectors. We cover a multitude of compliance frameworks, so very quickly show you whether you're non-compliant and what you need to do to go and become compliant. And it helps bring together IT operations security teams together to identify, prioritize, and obviously remediate those threats to the VMware systems. I hope this has been useful. If you want to find out more about Runecast, you can certainly visit our website, www.runecast.com, or you can reach out to us on roi@runecast.com. Let me just present the final slide here. So at the bottom there's the website and the email address there. If you're interested in finding out more about Runecast or want to see a demo, we'd be more than happy to for you to get in contact with us, and we will reach out to you. Just to, on the right hand side here, just to cover what's coming up next with the VMware webinar series, back to school series. So on the 7th of September, the next one of this series is titled VMware vSphere Upgrades and Hardware Compatibility. So you'll learn the ins and outs of upgrading your vSphere setup and ensuring hardware compatibility in an automated way. As I said, I did mention these were going on till the beginning of October. My mistake, they actually run right through to the beginning of November. So some dates for your diary. If you've registered for the series, great, you'll be sent invites to all of these webinars. There may be some questions, so I'm just going to have a quick look at those. What SIEM tools do you prefer? There are many out there. One that's often very useful, and I've had good feedback from, is Splunk, and I've been involved with using Splunk as a SIEM tool. Very powerful and very quick for getting insights. So yeah, that'd be one that I would recommend. But there are many out there, but certainly Splunk is one that I've used before, and it's very easy to use and very, very powerful.
All right, Marcus asked also, do we also get the slides?
Yeah, we can provide the slides. I'm happy to allow the slides to go out. We can put them in PDF format and distribute. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. And Dieter asked, vCenter has MFA and the question mark.
Is the question vCenter has MFA or?
Yes, that was the question, but not elaborated what was meant.
Yeah, a lot of the VMware products, as I mentioned, support two-factor authentication, or MFA as you've put it. Again, you'd have to do a little bit of digging into that, and I'm sure vCenter is one of those that is covered there. Well, once again, thank you very much for attending. We look forward to seeing you on the future webinars, and yeah, have a good rest of the day.